Our next speaker is a celebrated and award-winning artist and author. His upcoming book, I Have a Dream, will be published this fall and elevates the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to a whole new level with its beautiful, beautiful illustrations. Please welcome Kadir Nelson.
Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today, and I would like to thank BEA for inviting me to speak to you this morning. It's a great privilege to speak to you, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your many years of continued support of my work in children's literature. Thank you for putting not only my books, but all books in the hands of children who love reading them as much as we as authors and artists love creating them. I consider it an honor to share a few words about my work on a new book, my most recent book, I Have a Dream, a celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous speech, which he delivered almost 50 years ago on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial on August 28, 1963, during the Civil Rights March on Washington. When I was approached about the possibility of illustrating I Have a Dream, I was beyond flattered, but wondered to myself, how could I possibly add anything to Dr. Martin Luther King's powerful words? Dr. King's speech was and remains one of the greatest in American history, and his life was a testament to the individual and collective strength of the human spirit. Every time I listen to the speech, it always stops me in my tracks and inspires thought and introspection. I can remember the first time I heard Dr. King's words. I was in the 5th grade, and my family had just moved to a new neighborhood. I was the new kid in my class, and my first assignment was to memorize Dr. King's speech. I had only one day to do this before I had to deliver it to a classroom filled with strange faces. I was afraid I wouldn't remember it, but my mother calmed my nerves with her surefire method of memorization. She told me to relax, breathe, and read it over a few times before I went to sleep. By morning, I would have it down pat. I trusted her and followed her instructions. And as sure as the sun rose that day, she was right. Dr. King's dream-inspired speech had cemented itself in my brain while I was asleep. As I stood before my class the following morning, Dr. King's words poured out of me, as he would say, like the waters of a mighty stream. I successfully delivered the speech without a hitch, and as an unexpected side effect of speaking those words, I somehow felt stronger and more confident and very proud. As an adult, Dr. King's speech would provoke further thought about what I, as an emerging artist, could personally do to contribute to his dream for America. I often wondered about the work that I do, its relevance, and hoped that the images that I would create, the stories that I would tell, and the joy that I hope to share through my work could somehow positively influence others. Over the years, I've created hundreds of paintings, illustrated books about a multitude of subjects, graceful giants. I'm going to reach over here. I might have to ask you to push a few buttons. Put them to work. Okay, you can go ahead. That's not, okay, hit it again. Go back there too. Okay, hit it again. Okay, one more time. Back or forward? Okay. Okay, I don't know what happened there. Okay, here we go. Give me some of that magic from your book. So I've illustrated books about graceful giants, mischievous toddlers, singing animals, great athletes, famous Americans, freedom fighters, and so on. And with each story, I've made it a point to show the strength, love, and light that dwells within every character, and indeed every human being, with the hopes of appealing to what Abraham Lincoln described as our better angels. Perhaps my editor and art director found relevance in this aspect of my work and felt that I might be able to further extend Dr. King's dream through creating images for a book that would celebrate the 50th anniversary of his famous speech. Fresh off of a 3-year journey of writing and illustrating Heart and Soul, which you just saw, a book that follows the journey of a narrator whose family story runs parallel to the story of America. Okay, you can hit it down. Okay, that's out of order, but you can hit that again. No, you can hit it again. There you go. Yeah. This is fun. Beginning with the tale of the last slave and her family, his journey through the Civil War, the Great Migration, the Great World Wars, and culminating with the you can hit it after again. Culminating with the Civil Rights Movement on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, where Dr. King delivered his "I Have a Dream" speech. I set about the task of illustrating Dr. King's marvelous words. This was no small undertaking. I felt weighted with the responsibility of getting it right. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Yeah. Okay, you can hit it again. Before I began painting, I listened to Dr. King's speeches. And I listened to his speeches over and over, and I pored over books, hundreds of photographs, and I watched documentaries. I found quite a bit of reference material online and in print that was very useful, but there's nothing like being there in person to soak up the atmosphere, to feel the warm sunshine on the mall where over 250,000 marchers gathered to move America in the right direction, to smell the same cool air they breathed and even hug the trees under which they found shade during that hot summer day. So I traveled to our nation's capital with the hopes of compiling my own photographic reference and further enrich my experience. I visited the new Dr. King Memorial, the famous mall, the reflecting pool, and the Lincoln Memorial where Dr. King spoke. I was particularly excited to take the perfect photograph of the reflection of the Lincoln Memorial in the water of the reflecting pools. The monuments and memorials were all quite spectacular, but the reflecting pool looked a little bit different than what I'd seen in the pictures. It seemed the never-ending construction projects in our nation's capital made its way to the mall. Well, I guess I'd have to use the photographs in my imagination for that. Shaking off my disappointment, I walked along the water's edge, all the way up to the stairway to the spot where Dr. King spoke. I looked out over where I had walked and imagined what Dr. King saw as he stood there almost 50 years ago, and I took it all in. I felt privileged to be standing there and humbled by my great task. I couldn't wait to get back home and start painting. Shortly after my trip to Washington, my editor, Ann Swartz, and I had chosen which parts of the speech to illustrate. With the approval of the King family, we excerpted what we felt was the most important and best-known portion of the speech, where Dr. King spoke about his dream for America. Those parts of the speech that spoke loudest and clearest and resonated most with children. We decided to include the full speech along with a CD of Dr. King delivering the speech in the back of the book. Upon settling on the final manuscript, I set about creating a number of sketches to accompany Dr. King's words. As some selections from the speech were a bit abstract, I found it at times to be challenging to create images that hit the right tones. For example, Dr. King said, "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men were created equal. Or I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. How could I illustrate those powerful words? To solve my dilemma, I decided to use a procession of images that would describe the setting. I'm going to go a couple of those. That would describe the setting and mood of the day of the speech, while also setting the stage for the jump to the images that describe Dr. King's dream. The images that show the day of the speech are very realistic and straightforward, fully composed with marches on the Mall, Dr. King, monuments, and memorials. However, the images that were to describe Dr. King's dream are less straightforward. Instead of illustrating the literal elements of the text, I chose to illustrate the concept. For weeks, I toiled over how to differentiate these images of Dr. King's dream from those of the day of the speech. I thought perhaps that they might be monochromatic or a bit faded, but that didn't work. I decided to paint the first dream image and leave the canvas white background as it was in my sketches, and then come back to it later. I did so on the next few dream paintings as well, and as I progressed, I put all the paintings I'd finished thus far in chronological order and found that the dilemma had solved itself. The bright white backgrounds gave an impression of being inside of a cloud, almost as if the reader were literally stepping inside of Dr. King's dream. And as the speech progressed and the dream became clearer, both the dream and reality would merge and be painted with complete backgrounds and a full, colorful palette. Voila. I discovered that sometimes you merely have to keep walking and working, and your challenges will often work themselves out. Several weeks later, I finished the interior artwork and delivered it to Lee Wade and to put her finishing touches on her brilliant design for the book. The result is I Have a Dream, a celebration of Dr. King's magnificent vision that continues to move Americans from all walks of life to share his dream. It's a privilege to share it with you, and I hope that the experience children will gain from reading Dr. King's powerful words will make them feel stronger and more confident, just as I had as a young fifth grader, and inspire readers of every age to continue in their own way to contribute to Dr. King's dream for America. Thank you.